Have you ever found yourself so lost that you stumble into a place that shouldn't exist? A place that's not on any map. A place where the signs are always pointing the wrong way. And once you check in, you may never check out. Tonight, I'll take you deep into the Australian Outback, where one truck driver discovers a roadside motel that seems normal at first. But inside these walls, something ancient waits. I've driven through some of the most remote parts of Australia, endless highways stretching into nothing, where hours can pass without seeing another vehicle. Out here, in the far corners of the Outback, you learn to trust your instincts. And when you don't, strange things happen. That night started like any other long-haul trip. I had picked up a delivery in Port Hedland, heading east, cutting through the Pilbara. A straight, lonely drive, with only low shrubs, red dust, and the occasional wandering kangaroo to keep me company. By the time the sun set, I had been driving for over 9 hours. The Outback sky turned from deep crimson to inky black, pierced only by faint starlight. There was no moon that night, no signal on the radio, no bars on my phone. Just the hum of my truck and the rhythmic pattern of tires rolling across cracked, uneven asphalt. I was planning to push through the night, but around 11:30 p.m., fatigue hit me hard. My eyelids grew heavy. The lines of the road began to blur. It wasn't safe. I needed to pull over somewhere. Anywhere. That's when I saw it. Out of nowhere, a large green highway sign illuminated by my headlights. River's Edge Motel, 2 kilometers ahead. I blinked. I didn't remember seeing that motel on any map or during trip planning. But I was exhausted. The idea of a hot shower and a bed outweighed my curiosity. As I drove closer, another sign appeared. Vacancy. The motel sat just off the highway. A small, weathered building surrounded by nothing. 2 stories tall, faded white paint, a flickering neon sign above the office door. A few old cars were parked in the lot, but there wasn't a soul in sight. I pulled into the lot, cut the engine, and sat for a moment. Something about the place felt odd, but I couldn't put my finger on it. Maybe it was just the silence. I stepped out of the truck. The air was cold, dry, completely still. Not a single cricket. Not even the usual hum of insects. The world felt muted. I walked toward the office. The fluorescent light inside buzzed faintly. Through the dirty glass door, I could see a man standing behind the counter. He looked up as I entered. "Evening," he said with a stiff smile. His voice was low, gravelly. "Looking for a room?" "Yeah," I nodded. "Just for the night." He slid a key across the counter, old-fashioned, with a tarnished brass tag that read Room 6. I noticed something odd. There was no computer, no logbook, no paperwork. "Do I need to sign anything?" I asked. He shook his head slowly. "Not necessary. We keep things simple here." I hesitated for a moment but didn't argue. Fatigue had dulled my judgment. The man gestured toward the hallway behind me. Straight down the left corridor. Last door on the right. I thanked him and carried my small overnight bag down the dimly lit hallway. The air smelled faintly of mildew and something else, old wood maybe. The corridor seemed longer than it looked from outside. Much longer. The fluorescent bulbs above flickered sporadically as I walked. Every few steps, I swore I heard something. A soft creaking, faint shuffle, like someone else was walking just behind me, matching my pace. But every time I glanced over my shoulder, the hallway was empty. When I reached room 6, I unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was ordinary. A single bed, a wooden desk, an old television bolted to the wall, and a small bathroom in the corner. Everything smelled slightly musty, but not unbearable. I tossed my bag on the bed and sat down heavily. The silence was unsettling. I turned on the TV, just static. No channels. Shrugging, I turned it off again. I considered stepping back outside for some air, but when I looked out the window, something caught my eye. The parking lot. It was empty. My truck was gone. The other cars are gone. Nothing but an empty, cracked asphalt lot under the pale glow of a flickering street lamp. I blinked hard, rubbed my eyes. No, it had to be the exhaustion. I had parked just minutes ago. The truck was out there. I closed the curtains and laid back on the bed, staring at the stained ceiling. The hum of the old air conditioner filled the room with a dull, constant drone. Eventually, my eyes grew heavy. Sleep pulled at me, but just as I drifted off, I heard it. A knock. 3 sharp knocks. At my door. I froze, wide awake again, every nerve on edge. I looked at the clock on the nightstand. 3 a.m. Perfect. The knock echoed faintly through the room. 3 precise taps. Firm. Intentional. Not the kind of knock you hear by accident. I sat upright on the bed, heart pounding, listening for any sound beyond the door. Silence. I stared at the door handle. It remained still. 1,000 thoughts raced through my head. Was it the manager? Another guest? Someone playing a prank? Cleared my throat. Hello? No answer. I waited another few seconds before slowly approaching the door. I pressed my eye to the peephole. Nothing. Just the empty hallway bathed in dim yellow light. I unlocked the door, cracked it open cautiously, and peeked outside. The corridor stretched out in both directions, empty. Not a soul in sight. The same faint creaking sound echoed softly down the hall, like old wood flexing under invisible footsteps. I stepped fully into the hallway and glanced back toward the front office. The neon light from the sign outside flickered through the dusty glass, but the reception counter was empty. The manager was gone. I felt a chill in my gut. Suddenly, a noise made me jump. Click. The door to room 5, the room next to mine, slowly creaked open. Just a few inches. Enough to expose a sliver of pitch-black darkness inside. I stood frozen, staring at that narrow gap. The air in the hallway seemed heavier now, thicker. For a brief moment, I thought I saw movement inside, like a shadow shifting along the edge of the doorframe. My instincts screamed at me to back away. I turned and retreated quickly back into my room, locking the door behind me. The atmosphere in the room had changed. The faint hum of the air conditioner was gone. The only sound was the faint ticking of the old clock on the nightstand. I sat back on the bed, gripping the edge tightly, trying to steady my breathing. The clock read 3:05 a.m. The minutes crawled by, and then another sound, this time from the bathroom. Drip, 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 water dripping from the faucet. I hadn't used the sink. I stood up, hesitant, and slowly approached the bathroom door. The dripping continued, steady, rhythmic. As I crossed the threshold, I noticed the bathroom light flickering softly, casting distorted shadows on the walls. The sink faucet was dripping clear, steady droplets into the porcelain basin. I reached for the knob to tighten it and froze. In the mirror above the sink, for just a moment, I saw a reflection behind me. A tall, thin silhouette, motionless, standing in the corner of the room. I spun around instinctively, but there was nothing. The room was empty. I was alone. I turned back to the mirror. Only my pale, tired face stared back. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. I shut off the faucet and backed out of the bathroom slowly, never taking my eyes off the mirror. Back in the main room, I noticed something else. The curtains. They were wide open. I know for certain I had closed them before I laid down. Beyond the window, the parking lot was still empty. No truck, no cars, no signs of life. And the strange thing was, the sky looked different. Instead of blackness speckled with stars, a faint grayish mist seemed to hang in the air, like a fog that hadn't been there before. I pulled the curtains closed again and sat back on the bed, my nerves completely frayed. I needed to leave. Now, grabbing my bag, I headed for the door. As I reached for the handle, I froze once more. On the inside of the door, something was written, carved into the wood, in thin, uneven letters, like someone had scratched it with a knife. Don't look back. The message sent a fresh surge of fear through my chest. I tried to swallow, but my throat was dry. Hand shaking, I unlocked the door and stepped into the hallway once more. The corridor was still empty. The same dim lights flickered. The creaking floorboards still whispered beneath my steps. I forced myself to move, walking briskly toward the lobby. But as I passed room 5, I noticed the door was now completely ajar. Inside was nothing but darkness. The faint scent of something metallic, like old blood, drifted from the open doorway. I didn't stop, didn't investigate. I just kept walking. Finally, I reached the lobby. It was empty. The counter, the office, the front door. No manager.
No guests.
The neon sign above the door buzzed faintly, its letters flickering in and out. I reached for the front door handle and pulled, but it wouldn't budge. Locked. I pulled again. Harder. Nothing. The door wouldn't open. Then I saw something that made my stomach drop. On the inside of the glass, written in the same scratched handwriting as my door, were the words, "You're not supposed to leave." I stood there for a long moment, staring at the message etched into the glass. "You're not supposed to leave." The air inside the lobby felt colder now, heavier. The buzzing neon sign above the door pulsed softly, as if flickering in rhythm with my heartbeat. I took a shaky step back. My mind was racing, scrambling for explanations, for any way out. Was this a dream? A hallucination? Fatigue? None of it made sense. And then, the lights cut out. Total darkness. The lobby was swallowed by black. I froze, holding my breath, straining my ears to listen. At first, there was only silence. But then, the faintest of sounds. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy. Somewhere behind me, in the hallway I had just walked through. I turned toward the sound instinctively, eyes trying to adjust to the darkness. There was nothing. No movement. But the footsteps continued. Closer now. Tap, tap, tap. Each step echoed faintly across the wooden floorboards. I backed away slowly, bumping into the front desk. As my hand brushed across the counter, my fingers found something. A flashlight. Without hesitation, I switched it on. A thin beam of light cut through the dark. The hallway was empty, but as I swept the light across the lobby, I caught movement in the corner of my eye. A shadow, tall, thin, slipping just out of sight into the far hallway. I swallowed hard. Panic clawed at my chest. I needed to get out. I turned back to the front door and yanked on the handle again. Still locked. I banged against the glass with my fist. Nothing. No sound from outside. No movement. Just endless fog pressing against the windows. It felt as if the world beyond the motel didn't exist anymore. Then suddenly the flashlight flickered. The battery was dying. The light dimmed, sputtered, and went out. I stood there in darkness again, heart hammering wildly. Then, a whisper, faint, barely audible. "Don't turn around." The voice came from just behind me, as if someone was standing inches away, breathing into my ear. I clenched my eyes shut. "Don't turn around." The air grew colder still. I could feel something, presence, standing there, tall, silent, watching. My legs trembled. And then, the knock. 3 sharp knocks. This time not at the door, on the ceiling. The sound reverberated above me, sending fresh waves of dread through my body. I didn't move, didn't look. "Don't turn around," the whisper repeated, softer this time. I forced myself to take a step forward, blindly feeling along the counter for anything that could help. My hand found a set of keys, old, rusted. Attached to the ring was a metal tag, "Service door basement." Basement. I hesitated. Every instinct told me not to go down there, but I had no options left. If I stayed in the lobby, I'd eventually have to face whatever was behind me. I moved toward the service door, which sat behind the counter. With trembling fingers, I unlocked it and pulled it open. A set of narrow wooden stairs descended into pitch-black nothingness. The air smelled damp and stale, like wet stone and old earth. I took one last glance behind me, still resisting the overwhelming urge to turn and face the presence I felt lurking just behind. Then I stepped down into the basement. The creaking stairs groaned beneath my weight. With each step, the temperature seemed to drop another few degrees. By the time I reached the bottom, I could see only faint outlines of the space. Shelves filled with old supplies, broken furniture, and scattered boxes. And then I noticed it. A door. Small, metallic, embedded into the far wall. Something about it felt different. The edges shimmered faintly, like heat waves rising off desert sand, like it didn't belong here or anywhere. I stepped closer. There were words scratched into the metal, barely visible in the dim light. The loop. Before I could process what it meant, I heard the whisper again. Louder this time. "You've already been here." I spun around, and for the briefest second I saw it. The silhouette. Tall, thin, his face blank and pale. Hollow, sunken eyes locked onto mine. And then it vanished again, slipping back into the shadows. I stumbled back, my hand instinctively reaching for the metal door's handle. Without thinking, I turned it. The door creaked open, revealing nothing but blinding white light. I shielded my eyes. A powerful wind pulled at me, as if trying to drag me forward into the light. The whisper returned, now surrounding me from every direction. "You can leave, but only if you forget." I hesitated. "Forget what?" I whispered aloud, but there was no answer, only silence. And the light was blinding, a pure, unnatural white that seemed to press against my skin, filling my lungs with its weight. I stood there at the threshold, the cold wind pulling at me, urging me forward into the unknown. Behind me, the darkness of the basement pulsed, alive, waiting. I could still feel its presence. The shadow, the watcher, or perhaps something even older. The whisper returned, softer this time, almost gentle. "You can leave, but only if you forget." I swallowed hard. Forget what? Everything? This place? My life? The thought of stepping through the door, of losing my memories, sent a wave of terror through me. But the alternative, staying here, trapped in this impossible motel, endlessly stalked by whatever lurked in the shadows, was far worse. I glanced behind me one last time. The faint silhouette hovered at the edge of the light. His hollow eyes stared at me, unblinking, patient, waiting. I took a deep breath and stepped into the doorway. The sensation was immediate. It wasn't like walking into another room. It was like falling through layers of water. Cold, thick, heavy. Voices whispered all around me. Fragments of conversations I couldn't quite understand. Images flashed through my mind. Places I had never been. Faces I didn't recognize. Time lost all meaning. I couldn't tell if seconds passed or hours. Then suddenly, silence and darkness. When I opened my eyes again, I was sitting behind the wheel of my truck, parked on the side of a familiar highway. The morning sun was rising over the horizon, casting golden light across the empty landscape. Birds chirped softly in the distance. For a moment, I couldn't move. Everything felt normal, real. I checked my phone, full signal. The time, 6:03 a.m. I glanced around. No motel, no strange building. Nothing but the endless stretch of highway I had been driving before. As if none of it had happened. Had I fallen asleep? Dreamed the entire thing? Hallucinated? But then I noticed something on the dashboard. A key. An old, tarnished brass key attached to a small metal tag. Room 6. My blood ran cold. The motel may have vanished, but it had left its mark. And somewhere deep inside me I could feel it. A hollow space where certain memories should have been. Like pieces of my mind had been carefully removed. I tried to recall details. The lobby, the basement, the face of the manager. But all of it was blurred, as if erased by some unseen hand. But one thing I could not forget. The presence. The eyes. Always watching. Always waiting. Even now, as I drove away under the bright morning sun, I couldn't shake the feeling that I wasn't truly free. That somewhere, behind the thin fabric of reality, the motel still existed. Still waiting. And that one day, maybe when I'm tired again, when I take the wrong turn, I might find myself back there, If you're ever driving through the Australian outback and you see a motel that shouldn't be there, don't stop. Keep driving. No matter how tired you are,